Everybody smiles in the same language. A smile, let your light come shining through.
Welcome to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. I'm Sandra M., coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico, the land of enchantment. I interview people from all parts of the world about what happiness means to them. What are they in love with? In each episode, we'll give you a key to happiness to include in your life, and of course, we'll play a happy tune from my live Celebrate Happiness Roadshow.
A smile doesn't cost you anything.
Welcome to the third season of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And don't forget to catch up on any episodes from seasons 1 and 2 you might have missed. Today we're talking with Rich Malloy, who is a drummer working across multiple styles and whose career has been built through consistently working in clubs, listening rooms, studios, and festivals. Rich has performed jazz, country, and songwriter music across New York, New Jersey, Dallas, Nashville, Fort Worth, including performances with Carmen Bradford of the Count Basie Orchestra, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Brenda Lee, Country Music Hall of Fame member Lorrie Morgan, and Freedy Johnston, named Rolling Stone Songwriter of the Year. Rich has appeared in the New Mexico Jazz Festival in 2023, 24, and 25, and has toured internationally throughout Ireland, Great Britain, and Italy. His performances range from small listening rooms such as the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville and the Listening Room in New York City to national stages including the Grand Ole Opry, the Ryman Auditorium, and The Late Show with David Letterman. Malloy also performs in Counterparts, an improvised duo with pianist John Funkhouser. In addition, he builds practical musical tools, including Form and Time, a metronome designed to keep tempo, time signature, and musical form aligned. Welcome, Rich, to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast, and I am really excited to talk with you about happiness. And why is it so important in your life? How does it manifest?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sandra. It's an honor to be on your show and to know you and to see all the great work you're doing with this series here. I think it's a wonderful thing to talk about. How does happy manifest for me? That's a great question. And I think probably the manifesting is probably more of it in my case. Something I thought about, as this was approaching, is what is happiness to me? And I kind of think that possibly is something that people are sort of born with, just a natural state of happiness. It's hard to prove that because it would be impossible to take somebody out of the environment they grew up with. But I think happiness is within certain people, and I think within certain people's experiences, it's something that's more accumulated, or a better word, like you said, manifest. I think it's something that takes work, even if you're born with it. The life is a series of ups and downs, and it's often more downs than ups. At least until we sort of get a handle on how to navigate the world. And I believe it's something that takes work, even if you were born into an environment where happiness is just natural. It's a default state. I think probably that lasts for a little bit of time, and then maybe it's something that you've got to work on, because anything that happens too easily generally wears out sooner. It's not necessarily good or bad. It just sort of wears out a little sooner. You've got to kind of do some work on what you believe happiness to be. In my scenario, happiness is a hard word. I really struggled with that. I think contentment,
Oh.
fulfillment, those kind of things are probably closer aligned to a state that I am in when I think people would use the word happy. Happy is sort of an experience that is a reaction to something good happening. I was like, oh, I got maybe a birthday present or something like that. Who knows? Like, oh, I'm happy I got a whatever for my birthday or an accomplishment or whatnot. But I think the fulfillment part of it comes through, the cultivation of the work that you do in your life, not only just going to your job or whatever it is that you check in and do each day, each year, but also the work that you do on yourself to be able to have the tools that you need in life to perform whatever it is you want to perform or build whatever it is you want to build or create or whatnot. Those tools are sometimes easily accessible when we're younger, and sometimes we have to travel some great distances to get to them. And while it's harder, in the beginning to get to that source of knowledge, information, achievement, cultivation, that kind of thing, I think the fulfillment as the years go on gets quite a bit greater if you did piece it together more on your own by trial and error and those kind of things. But it's such a complicated question and such an important one because we're only alive for just a few seconds, in the real big picture of things, if even that. And we might as well be happy, It would be a bummer to only be alive as long as we're alive, which is literally nothing, and not even be happy. So I think the work that we put into it is certainly worthwhile.
I just love what you said. It's like we're only here for a blink of an eye. Why not be happy?
Yeah,
and I ask people that.
Yeah, and what do people generally say when you ask them that?
Well, I used to hold conversations, in a room with 20 people and facilitate a conversation, and it's amazing what people say. And at one time, a man came and he was a depressive, and I said, "Why did you come to something such as this? Where we're all talking about happiness?" And he said to me, I wanted to see whether or not people really are genuinely happy and how do they go about it, etc. So when you were talking about some people are born happy, I believe that. I think we're all sort of born, unless there are certain situations where people have physical issues when they're born and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, I don't think we come out of the womb, unhappy necessarily, right? Sort of like a blank. But on the other hand, I think our world does train us to be unhappy many times through expectations and not teaching people to do, and you said something very important, not teaching people to work on themselves and to create their life. Yeah. I'd like to hear more of what you think about creating your life. What kind of work have you done on yourself? And I know you're a fantastic drummer. I mean, I've read through your bio. I'm just impressed beyond belief as to all the people you've worked with and different types of music you've done. How does music play into creativity and your own particular work on yourself and your own fulfillment, as you said?
Yeah. Oh boy, you say this is a half-hour podcast. I'll do my best to give the short version. Music in relation to happiness and how I've worked on myself is definitely been my life's journey. I cannot overstate how grateful I am that I get to play music and that I get to spend my time on earth pursuing music in its creative form, in its functional form, entertainment, all that kind of stuff. But for me, the most fulfilling moments of music really come alone when I'm working on things in my practice room with the drums. There's a lot of wiring that a drummer has to do to get your limbs to not only go in the right order, but to allow the drummer to have a vocabulary to speak as freely as possible, kind of like we do when we have a vocabulary of language, to speak with each other like we are right now. Drummers, especially drummers that do improvised music, really spend a lot of time working through coordination exercises and tunes and ways to orchestrate the drum set, because it can be really almost a complete musical instrument within itself, even though it's largely seen as part of a band. I discovered my love for this when I was about 10. And up until being 10, this is a whole nother podcast, but life wasn't terrible, but I had a pretty rough childhood, to be honest. And like I said, that's a whole nother episode. So when I found the drums, it was like, I felt like I found a friend. I felt like I found a companion, something that was there, and held me accountable to how I behaved with it. If I didn't work on it, I didn't sound very good, and if I worked on it, all of a sudden I would sound good. And I thought, man, I get an immediate response from this thing as soon as I start to go to work on it. And then there was the release of it. When you're 10 and you've got some friction going on around you and your environment, you play. Right. I broke a lot of drumsticks when I was a kid. I broke a lot of drum heads. I don't do that too much these days, but back then I could lay into them. And so there was this enormous sense of relief that, if you heard some of the music that I played when I was younger, you might think that it was really angry music, but actually it was a place of safety. It was a place of escape, which you could almost call happiness. I mean, none of us would have ever dared call it happiness back in the day. We were too cool for that. But it was a sense of release. So you got that. You got the community of the bands that you played in, especially garage bands when you're a kid and stuff like that. Those are huge. Those are really huge. And then learning how to work on coordination and knowing that, okay, the better I get at the drums, the better life is. And the more that I enjoy this experience of just being with the drum set and working things out. And then I realized it was opening doors into other areas of my life. I made the high school jazz band when I was in high school, and that was a huge thing for me, because then I got to spend 15 minutes during my high school day with the drum set. I thought, this is great. This seems like a good set of options. This makes me happy, let's say. And that was 40 years ago or whatever. And I still am sort of on that same path of how much can I give to the instrument? And I really mean that. It's how much can I give to the instrument to play it as well as it can be played, so that we can make the best music possible. Because once the music is happening, life is really good. When the music is happening, everything makes sense. And all the stuff in between the music is just work sometimes to get back to be able to play the music again. So it's really important to take care of that time. I think that at least I was on the drums. When I would get away from that, I would start reaching for things that were outside of me, that they weren't within my soul. They were like, oh, if I do this, I might be able to get in that group, or if I do this, I could go on tour with that band, or if I do this, I could get some sort of external reward. And every time I got close to experiences like that and sometimes achieved them, I came back not feeling very happy. It's like I did this thing that I grew up thinking I wanted to do, this show that I wanted to be on. And I went home and I didn't feel very good, because I think it was too external. It was too much of a performative experience, and it wasn't from within enough, because I think we do things that we need to do to be able to create opportunities. And as I get older, I realize that the deepest happiness is from the moments you are comfortable with yourself, that you can live in your own skin, that you don't have to explain why you're doing something. You don't have to broadcast what you're doing. You can just simply be at peace with it and enjoy it for what it is, even if there's nobody around. And with the drums, that's a little confusing, because the drum set by nature is generally part of a group. But I really have found so much happiness through that. And then music and the drums and the acceptance that I fortunately received over the years have led me to so many wonderful relationships. I mean, I cannot thank all the people who have held my hand through the years. Some of my best friends in the world are all from music. And they have really been there through me. You know, I was able to, through playing a one-off gig in Texas nearly 25 years ago, I was able to meet my wife, and without her, I can't imagine. I can't imagine life without her. You know, I just can't imagine even where life would be right now. So this instrument, this drum set, has graciously shown me the world and shown me a lot of beautiful relationships, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration, a lot of what am I doing? You know, I'm not saying it's been a walk in the park, but I think having a vehicle, kind of a long way around to what you started out with the question, I think having a vehicle, whatever it is, to go through life and be able to see the world through that, whether you're the best mechanic in the shop, or you ride bicycles, or you're the CEO of a corporation, or whatever it is, you know, that journey is where a lot of the happiness can happen, because I think that journey provides purpose, it provides connections, it provides accomplishment, it provides failure, it provides all the things that you need, I think, in life. But if you're lucky enough when you're younger to find something that you love doing, I think it's important to do it. And I think it's really, really important to understand that if you're not a professional at it, it's just as good. You don't have to do it with your life's work.
Yeah.
You can have another thing that you do, and then, you know, for financial stability, and you can preserve whatever it is you want to do to be the main thing, or maybe, you know, maybe what you want to do to be the main thing is the financial stability, and that's great too. But yeah, I think happiness is earned in my experience. I think if you're born happy, that's great, but pretty good chance that life's going to knock you off that rock before too long. And I think you have to figure out what makes you happy and ways to come back to it, because life's a real bitch if you don't have a little bit of happiness, you know, somewhere involved.
Yes. You know, something just sticks out, and you while you're talking, the drums and music has opened your soul. You said it opened your soul. And I'm thinking that when you open your soul, you connect to yourself on a deep level. And this gives you a kind of, as you said, contentment, fulfillment, especially as you get older. Am I interpreting what you said correctly?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much so. Very much so. You know, I play a lot of the same things that when I go and perform, a lot of I hate to call it a drum beat, but sometimes it is, or a pattern, or a feel, or whatnot. A lot of that stuff I learned when I was really, really young, you know, and I'm still playing those same patterns today. I improvise a lot. I probably go off the rails more than your next drummer when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I play, you know, a swing beat, a rock beat, a Latin beat, that kind of stuff. I learned those things when I was young. Thankfully, I had a great teacher growing up, a guy named Mike Ramsey, in Farmington, Missouri, and he could not have been a better teacher at the time when I first got started, because he understood my limitations and helped me with those, and understood my strengths. But sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. What was the question?
Well, I was just saying that music opened your soul and connected to yourself in a deep way, that now that you're older, it really you're more comfortable, more grounded.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so you might need to cut that part out, or don't. Then they can see the real train of thought going on here. The older part, the whole point is, I'll give you a little break. The whole point of playing the same beat from when you're younger to when you're older is you age with those rhythms. You age really with the space between the rhythms. It's not the actual note that you age with. You age with how much space to put in between things, when to push it when you might not have before, when to pull back, when to leave a little more space, and how to appreciate it. And I think when people say that they enjoyed something I did, there's one thing that makes me feel a little better than most things, and that's sometimes people say, I feel like you were really intentional with what you were doing, and I feel like that's important, because how you approach something, if you don't approach it with intention, and the older I get, the more I realize that intention is probably the most key ingredient of doing anything really well. You have to be there for it. You have to be there every step of the way. But yeah, how it changes over the years, it's kind of like that Joni Mitchell tune, Both Sides, that she sang when she was very young, and then when she was older again, she re-recorded it. And I think it's one of the most beautiful windows into how doing one thing changes through the course of your life, and probably how happiness changes through the course of your life.
Yes, and that I can see how much the drums have taught you how to live life, basically, how your experience of being a drum. Yes, and when you said the intention is the key ingredient, I think it's exactly the same for living. The intention, you get up in the morning, you have an intention of how you want to create that day. That's what I do every day. I get up and I go, how do I want to create this day? And of course, I always want to make it a beautiful day. I do, whatever. And so when difficult things happen, I always characterize them as difficult things happen, I don't stay with it for too long. I let it sort of hit me a little bit. I feel it. And then I go, listen, you have a choice. Do you want to stay with this like for the next 5 days or something, or even the next 5 hours or the next 5 minutes? Or do you want to do something that makes you feel good or makes other people feel good? And I've sort of trained myself to do that over the years. And I can and I also understand when you say that you've had a difficult early childhood. I was in the same boat. And I think many people literally have difficult childhoods. Let's put it this way. Not everybody, but many people do.
Quite a few.
And so how do we turn that around? How do we say no? I've decided that I want to have a happier life because actually we're not here that long. And I can choose. I'm so excited about this. I mean, yes. Do you have something else you wanted to add to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking that just in the grand scheme of things, I don't know how many of your listeners are into things like geology and archaeology and science. I would assume quite a few, being the nature of the podcast. But if you look at the time scale of the Earth and of even just basic civilization, basic recorded civilization, let alone all the things that are really out there as far as archaeology goes, and how long we've been humans, and how long we might continue to be humans, who knows on that part. But and then you look at the amount of time that a person has to live, it's a very short amount of time. And maybe you were wronged, maybe some bad things happen that were out of your control and it's unfair, and by every stretch of the imagination, you're at the top of the victim totem pole, but you're going to die there if you stay there, and if you get down off of it and you say, okay, man, it wasn't right. These things that happened weren't right, but also I got a life to live, and it's time to move forward with whatever that life may be. And you won't even know what it is if you're too busy obsessed over what didn't go right. And you do have to do the work to untangle those things. And that is not a walk in the park by any means. The amount of work it takes to figure out what is right and what is wrong, and you got to come to that on your own, I think. That's some heavy work. That takes years, I think. At least in my case, it has. But understanding that it's not going to get any better if you don't want it to get better. And do you really want to live? Do you want to spend your whole life stranded at sea on some justification island or whatever? It just doesn't seem like a good way to go about things. Like, okay, it stinks, but move on. And that's again where I have to I'm so thankful for the drums, because the drums are one of these instruments that you can go to a music store and have no experience with music whatsoever. You can go up to a drum, you can take a drumstick and whack a drum, and you'll get something from it. It'll be pretty exciting. Right. It's loud. It comes back at you. The drums are like these like these. It's just an incredible instrument because and all instruments are sort of like this, but the drums are more so, I think, just due to their nature, their size. When you play it, it moves the room. It moves you. It moves your body. Even just a whack, one whack at a music store or whatever. So you get that immediate gratification from it, which is great for a 10-year-old kid like myself who really needed it at the time. But as an adult, if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not taking care of my physical health and my emotional health and my mental health, I'll start playing the drums like that. My groove and my shows and my interactions with the other musicians will reflect that I'm not living life very well, and it has in the past at certain times. And it immediately lets me know, like, hey, man, you're off the rails. It doesn't sound right. So you need to fix your shit. You need to get right with yourself. Actually, Sonny Rollins just passed a couple of days ago. And there's this YouTube video of all of his albums that are so great. And they're legendary. They changed the shape of jazz and gave us all, just, I can't say enough good things about him. Everybody else has already said it. There's a YouTube video somewhere out there where he talks about you got to get right with yourself before you get right with the music. Because if you're not right with yourself, you can't bring anything to the music. And I think that's been the drums for me. The times that I have not played the drums very well, I probably wasn't living very well. So they've sort of been the surrogate parent in a way that is always watching over me, always holding me accountable, always there for a good time. Always there to show up and do the work. It's a matter of me doing it, though. They won't do it for me. They'll sit there and allow me to whack around on them, but I've got to do the work, and I think that part is when it all comes together, I will say I'm very, very happy in those moments,
That is so beautiful. I wrote down, if you're not right with yourself, you're not right with your music.
Yeah.
And this is, And so if you're not right with yourself, you're not right with your life. Which is, if you're not a musician necessarily, but your music, with the music that you put out there, just the way you interact with yourself, with other people, with your animals, etc. And I wanted to say that I've interviewed a lot of women and men, and I find interviewing you as a man, you're so open about talking about things that most men don't talk about. Not right with yourself physically, emotionally. No.
I'm just joking.
If I'm not, yes, I know. And so I'm so grateful for that, because I think we need to let people know that everyone has these very strong feelings. And I do think that musicians and performers, people who are creative, do a lot more introspection, etc., than maybe most people do. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling about that. And I also wanted to say that I came to see you and John Funkhouser do your improvisation, and I was so impressed with both of you, of course, but because you are both outstanding musicians. However, your drum set, you're welcome. But your drum set was so extensive, I couldn't believe it. And could you talk about that a little bit? It's not just your ordinary drum set that you see, when you go to a dance or you go to a concert.
Oh, thank you. And it was so great to see you there, and you came up and spoke to us for a little bit afterwards, and knowing that you were so, again, the intention thing goes both ways. When somebody plays with intention, you give the audience a chance to listen with intention, and you really did. You caught a lot of stuff that we were doing that night when you came up and spoke afterwards. And for anybody who goes to shows, if you go up to a musician afterwards and you say, "It sounds great," it's like, all right, thank you, I appreciate you being here. But when you come with that kind of intention and you have these specific questions about the setup and stuff, it was very flattering and very appreciative, and that makes musicians want to play even better. The setup, yeah. So I came to the setup. Finally, I got brave enough to let it happen. again, going back to how I grew up and some of the phases that I've had through life, I've lived a number of musical lives, and it's one of the things that I think, looking back, I feel probably the best about when it comes to my involvement in music is that I've been in a lot of different environments, or at least a handful of very different environments, because I just love music. I love when good music's happening and I'm in the flow, and that doesn't matter if it's hip hop or bebop or heavy metal or classical music or country music or whatever. That flow that happens when music is right is universal. It's us humans and our little subculture cliques that want to divide music into different parts. And so since I have lived a lot of those, I started out mostly in heavy metal when I was a kid. I have a classical music degree. I was a country drummer for a while. I've been playing jazz drums for a while. I was an R&B drummer back in the day, and probably a couple other things I can't think of right now. And I wanted my drum set, like all my heroes, I felt like they played their life. They played themselves. They didn't play their heroes. You could hear their influence, you could hear the lineage, but they played who they were. And I thought, like at this point, there's been a lot that's been done on the drums, even though it's still a brand new instrument. The drum set's only about 120 years old, depending on where you start the line. All the other instruments in jazz are far, far older, and they were all originally supposed to be for classical music. Almost every single one of them, wind band, orchestra, piano, that kind of thing. There really weren't jazz instruments. The drum set is one of the very few instruments that is made for jazz. And I think that's one of the most incredible things is you can set it up based on your personality, based on your body type. I have short legs, so I need to, keep things close by as far as the pedals and that kind of stuff. And I wanted my life to be represented. I wanted to be able to switch into different genres pretty quickly. So I knew I wanted melodic capabilities, which is why there's so many toms. There's 5 or so toms. Gives me a pentatonic scale. I have 5 of these little metal chimes that allow me to have the similar type of scale, but with metal. So I have a wooden melodic set and I have a metal melodic set. And then I have 2 of all the timekeeping sources, which is 2 bass drums tuned differently. One bass drum's higher than the other to give kind of a harmonic approach, like doom, 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 doom. And not necessarily just the double bass from back in the day. I have 2 snare drums tuned differently. I have 2 hi-hats, 2 ride cymbals, because I always want to be able to mix and match the timekeeping and then be able to interject melodically with the wooden toms and the metal chimes. And I just kind of kept fooling around with it. I've been doing this for a lot of years at the house, and I was never going to show anybody this. It was just for me because I knew people would laugh and make fun of me. And finally one day I thought, this is actually who I am. So if I'm going to do me, it's got to be this. And, Funkhouser, who is just, not only, talk about someone who lives right and plays right. He lives how he plays. He's full of joy, and he's worked on his joy. He's worked on his ability to be happy. I don't think that was a gift for him. And it comes out in his playing. And we've hooked up on a number of gigs and just sort of had a sympathetic musical relationship. And when we talked about doing this, it was a natural fit. And then we feed off of each other. We have no idea, obviously, what's going to happen. That's the whole point of it. But I think having a kit like this allows the drums to go into more directions than just timekeeping, just a groove. It can be melodic. It can be harmonic. And that's really important to me. Right. So that's kind of how I got there.
It was exciting. It really was exciting. And I'm so pleased to have this opportunity to talk with you about music. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot. And I just want to know if there's anything you'd like to say to leave us with some jewel that you have up your sleeve.
I'll say something that a wise person told me once, is that it's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you asking me to be a part of the series here. It's certainly an honor, and it's a great pleasure to know you, Sandra.
Give back. If you find that giving daily compliments provides a needed boost to your mood, considering making a monthly routine of giving back on a larger scale.
Maybe that's helping out at a food bank on the third weekend of every month, or offering to watch your friend's kids one night per month.
Newsflash! Please sign up for your copy of our Keys to Happiness at sandramcknight.com. Thank you for tuning into Season 3 of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And if you enjoyed the conversation, please help spread the word by sharing with your friends and family. And don't forget to catch up on any episodes from Seasons 1 and 2 that you might have missed. Before we go, I'd like to thank today's guest, Rich Malloy, for sharing his happiness story. And to share your happiness story on the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast, send an email to sandra@sandramcknight.com.
Turn your smile on, you can't go wrong. You'll find that love is all